Ready. Play.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you are tuning in from. I am joined by Damien. Often it's Damien joined by someone else, but on this rare occasion, in fact, I think it's my debut appearance on this show, at least front of
I've only
house.
missed one, so
You've only
I'm
missed
like a
one,
staple
and
here.
this is my
Apparently
first.
from all the Talking Tennis team, it's me who needs to get alive the most. So
the evidence is there in front of us. Well, certain other people have remained alive in the French Open draw today. There are more significant matches to talk about, but given that he's on my screen right now and it's freshest in my memory, I'm going to begin with Taylor Fritz and the shushing to the crowd at the end of that match. I don't know if you saw that. He was clearly getting a bit agitated. Between serves, I think they were obviously quite vociferous, and that frustration, joy mixed together, I think, spilled over with him shushing to the crowd. I can't hear exactly what he's saying right now. He's talking on court afterwards. But it was kind of Daniel Medvedev-esque from New York in 2019, if you remember that.
I mean, doing it for like one whole minute is pretty extra. But, well, he just did whatever felt like natural for him, right? After winning that. I don't really think, it's anything to write home about or something. But certainly he did it for like a lot longer than most people would, I think. I was like, really? You're coming back and still doing this? Still? Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
Fine, Taylor. I mean, they're not gonna remember that on Saturday. So
no, and he still seems to be getting a fairly warm reception. The thing is, in New York, they didn't forget. It took about 3 or 4 more matches. It wasn't until after he lost. It was probably until he was 2 sets to love down to Rafa in that final. The Americans started supporting him because they wanted to see more tennis, of course. And his speech afterwards was pretty cool. And I think he's pretty much won the world over at various points during that New York tournament. Well, the world, except for Stefanos Tsitsipas, I think, have been won over by Daniel Medvedev, but I've digressed somewhat. Could just give us a quick take on that match between Rinderknech and Fritz. Surprises at all?
No, not really. I mean, good for Rinderknech to have a showing like this. I think, he was injured from like between March to May. I think. Similarly, last year actually, that he was injured during the clay season. Clearly, I mean, he is a guy who can play on clay despite the aggressive sort of game plan most of the time, and like how he got onto the tour, which was basically playing like almost serve and volley in indoor events. But certainly he can play on clay. He can cover that backhand quite well. Also, when he has a lot of time on it, I think it stops being a liability, and certainly he showed that today. And yeah, after a pretty rough start to the season, I think he really needed to be in a match like this. How impactful that is for the tournament, I'm not really sure yet. Fritz has that fantastic matchup coming up against Cerundolo, and then to also have to play Rune in the 4th round. Still a very long way from being a quarterfinalist, I think, if you have to play Cerundolo and Rune back to back. So not sure how impactful that is for the event, but definitely quite impactful, I think, on a mental, on a confidence level for Rinderknech, rather than, well, for Fritz as well, to come through after losing the opening set and really being pushed today, because even until the very end, it was not crystal clear that it was going to be Fritz winning that until the moment when he broke it for all.
Yeah. And even then, I think even that serving out, there was a couple of moments. And of course, the reason he got probably annoyed was because there was a moment between 2 serves when the crowd were being quite vociferous. But I didn't think the quality was that high for probably 3.5 sets. I actually think the 4th set was probably the peak, especially those last 3 or 4 games. But I must say there was, I know Rinderknech won the first set 6-2, but Taylor Fritz was up 40-love on his serve and was I think his serving stats as well. I think both players were like at 35-40% second serve points won. That did get better as the match went on, but I don't know. It just felt a bit like Holger Rune against Eubanks, which was a 4-set match of the day. it was just lots of errors, slight mishits and shots going wide and just I don't know. It was interesting, but it wasn't any Alcaraz Sinner, that's for sure.
Alcaraz Sinner at Roland Garros, that's not happening.
No, it's not. That brings us nicely to what was clearly, for me, the match of the day. I saw this one pretty much in its entirety, so maybe I'm biased compared to the Monfils match, but for me, it's the best match I've seen. I've not seen every match, but it had everything. I think the one thing it didn't have, I guess, was a Frenchman, which is why probably people will remember the Monfils match a little bit more fondly, perhaps. But for me, it had everything. I mean, you had the swings, you had the drama, you had Sinner sort of being an elite player who is perhaps fancied by some to go far, but ended up going out. We also had him having match points and having a net cord go against him on a match point, as he was basically probably going to put away a volleyed winner. No certainties with that. But anyway, that also, though, by the way, came off. And this probably brings us to a generic point. It did he did kind of let Altmaier off the hook on that match point, didn't he? With going with the smash down the middle, which was the cautious decision, meaning Rinderknech was Altmaier was probably going to get a racket on it, and actually got more than a racket on it. It managed to fly back across the net, albeit it clipped it. But do you think he could have done better with that smash? I'm sure you do. Can you hear me, Damien?
Yeah, I can. I will probably change my internet provider right now.
I mean, you're coming through loud and clear, by the way. You don't. I remember this happened last night, but we get you clearly. But I don't know.
Yeah, and then it never appeared again. So maybe I'll actually leave it for now. But anyway, should I already respond, or do you have anything more?
Yeah.
No. I think Ghibli in the chat is being a little harsh on Altmaier still, but I guess it also kind of depends on your expectations. Like if you considered Sinner to be contender for the whole thing, sure. Frank, I didn't. We've talked about it many times. I just didn't really figure that after his clay season kind of breaking down, and the fact that he had to withdraw from Madrid, then in Rome he also lost to Cerundolo and was like really tame in the last two sets. I just probably hey everyone. I just probably figured that he was probably not among the main contenders for the title. Also on clay, I know he can play everywhere, right? I mean, he's a Roland Garros quarterfinalist a few years back. He can play everywhere, obviously. But still, I just think this is probably not where he is at his strongest. I had him down in a roundtable prediction that I did for a website. That I did roundtable prediction. So me and a few other people did, but I had him down as my early exit, which was which of the top 8 seeds do you think is going to be kicked out of the tournament the earliest? Of course, that wasn't really right because Medvedev was actually the one that got out. But I had Sinner there, even though I didn't really have a clear idea of who he can lose to. I didn't think that Altmaier was going to beat him. I just kind of looked at him and, he can go out pretty early. I wouldn't be really shocked at this. As he said, the match was just crazy. And I think even yesterday we were talking about the best of 5 format. And I had a tweet about it that yesterday. And today we get this. And this is just this sort of compelling narratives and stories that we wouldn't really be getting elsewhere, that we can't get in a best of 3 scenario in the shorter format. Obviously enjoyed it a lot. Is it my favorite match of the event so far? Quite possibly. As you said, the drama was insane. The net courts, but also Altmaier did exactly the same thing as Sinner on his 4th match point. I think he clinched it on his 5th or 6th.
So Sinner did the same thing. He had a smash. You mean the smash that
that Altmaier did the same as Sinner, on his 4th match point, I think, where he had an easy smash, just blasted it down. I mean, blasted, not even blasted. He just pushed it down the middle, and Sinner passes him with the forehand. Yeah. So it's literally the same. I don't think the net court was even that impactful, because even if the shot just made it in, just barely over the net, Sinner would have had a pretty tough volley. Of course, there's still a difference of getting a racket on it and not even being able to do that. But of course, I think I would say that I would blame it less on luck, but more so on the Sinner smash. And yeah, over the course of the match, I thought Altmaier did an excellent job. Certainly, the one-hander was just ecstatic, basically for 5 hours. The down the line bombs that he was just killing, or just adding more height to it and going maybe cross court to Sinner's backhand, throwing him off his timing. Just maybe mixing up the rhythm a lot. This was very helpful. I'm not gonna say Altmaier played a perfect match. Certainly, that the attempts to serve it out, especially, he would get so defensive and just not have any depth on his shots at all. Maybe another match as well, where maybe if Sinner had a net game, um, it would have been something just to help him here, because there were so many rallies when he had Altmaier on the defense and then just never really had an idea as to how to finish it off. Of course, the smash being like the prime example on one of his match points. The other was, I think, a +1 backhand that he just threw out, but also an unforced error, of course. And yeah, I think that this was probably more impressive from Altmaier than the upset against Berrettini at Roland Garros in 2020. Just by the fact that he had to keep up this level in over the course of 5 hours. So I would say that, and Ghibli also talks about the one-handers. That in some ways Clay makes one-handers seem vulnerable due to high bounce, but the extra time yeah, absolutely, and you could see that in this match. And I think Altmaier's one-hander is also one of the least vulnerable ones, at least on clay, to just being rushed. And you could see that this shot was just enormous for him today, and just in so many different ways as well. And I can't really say I'm disappointed with Sinner again, but I totally get it if some people are, because they simply thought that he was gonna do great here, and especially after Medvedev went out, right? That's when, I guess, as Sinner, if you're Jannik Sinner, you're going to start thinking, okay, maybe this is my moment. Jake, as Jake says, the one-hander of Stan, he only beat Federer on clay. He beat Djokovic like 4 out of 6 times that he beat him on clay, and it's not an accident, definitely not.
I mean, I'm probably a little bit more positive about Altmaier today than Ghibli is, in that he was really playing really well. I mean, some of the backhand winners that we touched on, and maybe they look better because they're one-handers, but no, I'm impressed with a decent double-handed backhand too. But I don't know. I thought, yes, he had a couple of moments on his serve, but bearing in mind as well that I thought when he loses the third set, I thought, well, that's done now, really. In fact, to be honest with you, when he lost the third set, I thought that was it. Of course, it goes a breakdown as well in the fourth set, and Sinner's serving for it. I'm just trying to remember the other match point. I actually don't remember the other match point, but but the back to now Altmaier, of course, has 2 bites at the cherry, and in terms of twice serving for it, I think altogether he had 5 match points, and on the one that we touched upon where there was also a smash from Jannik Sinner. If it wasn't, I don't think, facing a match point, but it was when Altmaier was serving for the match. And Jannik Sinner now gets his revenge for the net cord, because he does a smash that clips the net cord, takes the power out of the smash, and actually, just means it's actually impossible for Altmaier to get his racket on. So it wasn't exactly revenge or evening itself up, I wouldn't say, bearing in mind, really Jannik could well have done this in 4 sets. But I do think I would like to come to a broader point about Jannik, which is, from the moment it went into a 5th set, he was struggling. And we've seen this a lot. We've seen him cramping a lot over 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets in the past. I do think we are now at a point where it's becoming a bit too frequent. I know you can point to the matches with Alcaraz, 5 sets with Carlos, and also he played 5 sets in the round before. But those are actually in the minority where he still lost to Carlos, don't forget, and he was a breakup, I think, in the 5th. So I'm just a bit. That's probably one of the concerns about Jannik. Do you share those concerns?
Honestly, you should. I got kind of distracted because you should put the tweet on the screen that Ria is referencing. What the hell is that, guys? Like,
What?
Richard Gasquet
Oh
has not
yes, yes,
tweeted
I've seen it, and I
since
was going to bring it to
August.
our attention, but it's so weird that I don't
Yeah,
understand it. I think he
he
might have had his
hasn't tweeted.
account. Look, I'll show it to you. I actually saw it about 5-10 minutes ago.
Yeah, he hasn't
It's,
tweeted since January 2022. Then only retweeted like a couple of things since then,
but I think it
and
could
then
be.
he
Look,
puts
I think
this
it's fake
on.
news. I think it's fake news. I mean, it's just,
Sounds like a joke, right? I mean, yeah,
but it doesn't. It's not.
Ghibli, just look at the screen now. Yeah,
It's not even that
that
funny
he
though.
is retiring and he's gonna devote himself to his new project. What the
Just an
hell is that?
I had to check the date. It's the 1st of June. I wasn't sure if it was the 1st of April when I saw this,
Yeah,
but it's also look at the picture he's chosen of him. It's from looks about 10 years ago. Yeah, I
I
saw
don't
it,
know
and
what
my
to say
first
about
thought was
this.
that I was going to interrupt you because we were talking about Taylor Fritz. I think I saw it like about 10 minutes ago. And I thought, oh, hang on a second, we
Okay.
really should stop talking about Taylor Fritz shushing the crowd. But then I read it again. And I saw this just an egg coin, and I thought I had a coup for talking tennis, and we were going to break the news to our audience. But I then sort of read it a couple more times and just thought, this is not. I don't. But maybe he's had his account hacked. Maybe even by the just egg coin people. But maybe it is real, or maybe he has signed a deal with these guys and he's given them some publicity this way. I imagine it's a crypto hack, as Ghibli is suggesting. Yeah, that would make more sense. So, unless we hear otherwise, let's get back to the tennis. Just quickly, anyway. So, on Sinner and these physical issues, do you think I'm exaggerating?
I mean, he played for 5 hours today, but of course he has been pretty fragile in that. Most of last year he was like sometimes injured, sometimes healthy, basically, and that was really hurting him. There were a lot of withdrawals, there were some retirements. But yeah, like today, he played for 5 hours. Of course, something flared up.
But for half an hour, his movement was.
Yeah, I mean, something flared up, but he played for 5 hours. That's pretty normal, right? But yeah, over the course of his career, he's definitely been more injury prone than some other guys. But we're seeing it so much with younger players these days that maybe it's just something that's gonna go away with age. It's not something that is currently like the main thing stopping him, I think, from achieving even better results. He has still improved so much in 2023, so I think it's fine, really.
Anyway, just a little reminder about Fritz shushing the crowd. Any final thoughts on that? Who's Altmaier due to play next?
That would have to be Zverev. No, Zverev would be Zverev would be Tiafoe. Sorry, so that would be the fourth round. So Sinner was supposed to play. I can't remember. I absolutely cannot remember.
Putting it in now. Could it be Taylor Fritz?
Dimitrov, maybe? Was it
yeah,
Dimitrov?
it's Dimitrov. Yeah.
No, Fritz is playing Serundolo. Yeah, Dimitrov. Yeah.
Does he have a chance against Dimitrov? I think he does.
Of course he does.
What we looking at? 50-50?
Nah, that's a stretch, but it's nothing that cannot happen. Of course, he has a better chance that he probably did against Sinner. It's still Grigor Dimitrov, who, well, has also had his fair share of physical issues recently, right? And generally has not been the steadiest player out there. Nice battle of one-handers. I don't know if I'll be watching it, but we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, what match can we move on to next? We'll stick with the men and we'll come to the women in the second half. Just trying to remember some of the other matches from today. So we had Zverev winning in straight sets. I don't know if you caught any of that. Or did that take you by surprise, the comfort with which he won his match over Molchan?
Not really, Molchan has not been at his best either. So I generally find that, like, if Zverev was playing Karatsev next, I wouldn't have liked his chances. I don't think playing Tiafoe, it kind of opens up the draw for him for sure. But there's still some questions. Then again, he is one of the players who will be happy with Sinner going out of the event, right? Altmaier, Dimitrov, Zverev, Tiafoe, one of them will reach the quarters right now. So he definitely has a chance there. And he did look pretty fine today. I mean, especially compared to how he played against Harris, But I suppose against Harris, the biggest issue was just him not doing anything on return. And, well, against Molchan, that's not going to be an issue, realistically. So,
I mean, here is the group of people in the third round on the men's, on this side of the draw. I'm going to show it on the screen right now, and I'll come to some of the more specific matches shortly. But this is the third round lineup for Saturday on that half of the draw. That's obviously not the Djokovic Alcaraz half of the draw, which is coming up tomorrow. So one of these 16 people on our screen in 9 days, 10 days from now, is going to be gracing Philippe Chatrier with a shot at winning the French Open. Holger Rune, is that the one that has to be the most likely from this bunch?
I mean, he has a free win, basically, in the third round. That already helps him, of course. Serundolo Fritz, is that tough in the fourth round? It is somewhat tough, but you would still expect to beat him.
So Rune will play the winner of Serundolo Fritz, will he?
Yeah.
If he beats Olivieri. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think as well him having a walkover with the Monfils withdrawal, does that help him a little bit potentially?
Well, for Rune, we are always looking at some potential fitness issues, cramps, and etc. Right? So, not playing a match. Then again, if he was to play Monfils yesterday, would that really change much? I mean, it would have been a 1 hour, 50 minutes match at best, probably. Like,
I would imagine
that was just the reality, right? That was just the reality after Monfils played Baez for, until midnight basically, or even after that. So, I think perhaps it doesn't really change that much. And Olivieri, like that would be upset of the century levels for me. Yeah.
Okay.
So he definitely is the main contender here. You have to look at Ruud. I am kind of interested to see how Ruud plays against Zhang and how he potentially then could play against Jari. These are like pretty similar matchups, I suppose, where you just get a guy blasting a big ball coming at him. I'm not sure he holds up that well against it. When at the US Open last year, when Jiren Zhang was supposed to play him in the second round, I was like screaming about Zhang beating him in that second round. Of course, Ruud ended up making the final. I still think Zhang would have been like the favorite against Ruud back then. But of course, Jiren Zhang was in ridiculous form last summer. And he ended up blowing 7 match points to lose to Tim van Rijthoven in the second round and in the first round. And then that's why he never played Ruud. On clay, do I think his chances are as good and do I think his form is this good? Definitely not. But I still want to see how Ruud holds up in this and also against Jari potentially. Very similar matchups in terms of how they will play out, I think, and just people who can come out and, pick on the day. Oh, did this cut me off now?
I can still hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's very weird, but okay. And yeah, just very similar guys who can just peak and potentially throw him out. I think you have to look at them as the main favorites, right? Because in the bottom quarter, there's just not that much. However, of course, I am honestly at this point pretty convinced that Thiago Seybold can be in the quarterfinals here easily. If he makes it there, I'm not going to be the guy who tells you he cannot keep going.
Yeah, because he would have been.
It wasn't a perfect match, but it's just more important, sort of, I think, to.
He would have been on course to play Sinner, so that is not now going to happen.
In the quarters, but
yeah, in the quarters. So I don't know who he'll play. Well, he could potentially play Altmaier, Dimitrov, or somebody else in the quarters, and
Altmaier, Dimitrov, Zverev, or Tiafoe in the quarters, and in the fourth round he plays Choric or Etcheverry.
Okay, let's play a very quick game. From this half of the draw, these 16 players, just to get to the final, not to win the tournament, to get to the final, would you take Rune or the field?
The field. It's like probability-wise, it's definitely the field. Do I think Rune is first? Definitely. But just in terms of probabilities, it's not like Rune is over 50%.
All right. This is not the end of the game yet, Damien. Okay. I'm not. This is round 1 of the game. Now that it could end in round 2. We'll see where the camel, which is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Okay. Rune.
Oh, I understand how you're going to be going about this.
You've read my mind, yeah. But I think I'm going to go with. Rune, I guess this could be the straw that gets break. If I said Rune and Rude or the field, that's going to break the camel's back, right?
It could. It's hard to count this.
I was thinking of
I
going
have no
for a
clue whether
lighter
there's
weight
actually
option,
any
like an
marks.
Altmaier or Dimitrov, but then I thought, no, I actually think
That
Rune
wouldn't,
Rude.
yeah.
Rune Rude makes about 50-50. Maybe just go over the edge for me. If you gave me Rune and Rude
Yeah,
over the field, where are they?
and
When are they due to meet? Quarters or semis?
quarters. You
Quarters.
still don't know the draw at all, John. I mean, I'm disappointed.
Sorry, I've got.
I could probably just rattle off the whole. But that's also because I've been on every single last ball drops but one. So
Okay.
that's probably also because of that.
No, but I
And you
should
were
know because I know
asleep.
that Vilt against Sinner or Medvedev Sinner was 1 quarter, so I should have known that
Yeah.
Rude against Rune would be the other.
No. I totally get what you mean, and frankly, I think because they are in the same quarter, this actually kind of increases the likelihood of either of them making the final, because
Yeah.
we are assuming that like either of them makes the semis, and then they only need to win one match. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would say Rune probably better than the rest of the chances, but yeah. Like I really cannot tell you that if someone like Seibofield would get to the quarters, he would just suddenly maybe the pressure gets to him. We haven't seen it yet, but that's also like his second Grand Slam major, I think. So
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, at some point it might hit him. I don't think he was perfect. He's saying that maybe he could throw in a bunch of errors against Nishioka. Certainly, it is a possibility. He played a lefty already, which I think kind of increases his chances for the Nishioka match. And then again, Nishioka on clay, he's just here because he got a really good draw. So it would be very disappointing for Seibofield to lose right now. Like if he loses to Choric Echeverry, of course that's a normal result. He's not a top 10 player right now or something. Maybe he will be in a couple of years. I don't know. We'll see. But Choric Echeverry, that's a fine loss. But if he lost to Nishioka from this position, that would be very disappointing for his run.
Gil Gross is convinced he'll be a top 30 player very, very soon, and that seems to be justified. Top 10 is a long way away, but you never know. Listen, you mentioned Echeverry. I'll share a nice image
With
of
all
him.
due respect, I actually have to. I have to say something.
Go on.
With all due respect to Gil Gross, whom I really like, I'm pretty sure that the only match he watched from Seibovic this year was against Medvedev. So,
quite possibly. But
I have like reservations towards opinions like this.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure he would say it too. Like that's just really it.
I'm just trying to remember what he sort of said. He did say
anyway,
that.
there was also something in the chat.
Yeah, sure. I'm just reading Ghibli's comment.
Yeah, that could be an issue.
That could hinder his top 30 chances for sure.
Boris Becker was also in jail, but thankfully it was way long after his retirement.
20 years after he retired.
But anyway, Gili is also saying, can Jari make a semi? I think to expect Jari to beat Ruud and Rune back to back, if that's I guess at this point what we are expecting him to do if he wants to make a semi. On the slower clay in Paris, I don't know if I see it, but certainly a very nice win for him today against Tommy Paul. The fact that was reasonably clean, against someone with some good return skills, the athleticism of Paul, I think that's a really good sign for the Chilean. He plays Giron, who in a way is a worse version of Tommy Paul on clay, I think.
Yeah.
So I like his chances to get to the fourth round, but beating Ruud Rune back to back on slow clay, I think that could be too much. If we were in Geneva, I would probably be more on board.
Giron, by the way, his win today, did that take you by surprise? Straight sets over Lehecka?
I mean, the straight set nature of it, for sure. I did not watch it. I saw that Giron was winning 80% of his serve points or something like that. So it must have been a very poor showing from Lehecka, or maybe he was hampered by something. But yeah, that was one of the matches that definitely got lost in translation for me today.
What about Francis Tiafoe against Karatsev? Because I know that yourself and even more so Jack were convinced of a Karatsev win. I think many of us, to be fair, did expect the Russian to prevail, but ended up going out, I think, in 4 sets to Tiafoe. Of course, Tiafoe did win a clay court tournament back in beginning of April, I think, in the North American sort of clay court tournament that they had in, I think it was in the US. Then he didn't play Monte Carlo and
Houston.
in Houston, thank you, yeah. And then he didn't play Monte Carlo and didn't really tear anything up in Madrid or Rome. So, but he's not completely incapable on clay. Did he win Estoril or get to the final in Estoril last year as well? So, yeah. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that match today?
Yeah, Matthew is mentioning the stats that I was like looking at, and yeah, Giron was just winning everything on his serve, which was super weird to me. But yeah, Tiafoe, he made the final in Estoril, but he also won it a few years back. I think that's still to no, he actually has 2 ATP titles, right? They're in Estoril, I think. But
Houston,
yeah,
of course.
generally speaking, I would. Oh, Houston third one this year, yeah. Because it's this year, I still haven't, actually put it into my brain. It's still, I'm still on the stats from 2022. I would say that today, I can't even say that I was really wrong about Karatsev against Tiafoe. One thing that I definitely did not expect was going to be working so well for Tiafoe was just his first serve. Like he was not able to, Karatsev was not able to read anything there. Basically, was just unable for the whole 4 sets to even come close most of the time to Tiafoe on return, which I think I also read it, I think, in that Jack prediction that I mentioned yesterday and that you just referenced, that on the clay in Paris, the serve is going to be neutralized, and that was one of the main aspects of why Jack thought that it was going to be so easy. But then again, Karatsev had 2 set points at 5-4 in the third. He misses them, and then suddenly the match gets turned around completely. What was definitely quite what was the main strong point of Karatsev today, and I think it was also the case in the many matches that he played in Madrid, was that he comes out against a guy who has a pretty aggressive playstyle and has weapons, and he just completely takes the racket out of their hands and they cannot do anything. It was at the levels where Karatsev would have 30 unforced errors and winners, and Tiafoe had 10 or something like that. And that's the sort of domination that Karatsev can have from the ground over his opponents. And Karatsev was just absolutely duffing him in rallies, as Ghibli says. And suddenly that moment when he misses 2 set points comes, and that's when the match is over. Karatsev won 2 games after that, I think. 2 of the next 8. And no, sorry, 2 of the next 10 even. So basically that was it. That's why I can't really say that I was completely wrong, because Karatsev was sort of in position to win this match. In a position to win this match, he was he had 2 set points to go to 1 up, but certainly the quality of Tiafoe's first serve and how Karatsev couldn't really do anything against it was eventually mostly was the reason behind the win, and certainly something that I think a lot of us undervalued when it comes to this one. Then again, of course, if Karatsev wins today, he plays Zverev, then doesn't have to play Sinner, right? So that opening was very much there if he actually beats Tiafoe today, but he didn't, and it's now really open in that little section for sure.
I mean, if he wins today, he could go all the way to the. I mean, Karatsev, could go all the way to the final. I don't.
That's kind of what I started thinking at some point, because
Yeah.
I remember thinking that Karatsev can play Medvedev in the quarters, and then still, even though I like the matchup so much, and Karatsev has beaten him a couple of times, he has all these short angles that he can use to lure Medvedev forward a little bit, maybe just get him into some uncomfortable footwork patterns. And yet somehow I just figured, how likely is Karatsev to get to the quarters? Medvedev is more likely, so that's why I'm taking Medvedev for the semis. But once Karatsev would be actually in the quarters, you would like his chances against most people, maybe not as a favorite, but
potentially,
as a 40. And that it's a similar, I guess, thing, right, for Seyboth. Once he is in the quarters, if he gets there, of course, we are going to be like, okay, he has a chance against anyone. We cannot really exclude the possibility that he's going to win, even if he's not going to be favored, of course, against guys like Ruud, Rune, Alcaraz, Djokovic, and etc. He's one. He and Karatsev are definitely among this group where we would say that okay, he has a chance to win every match if he just plays at his peak level, and both of them have already shown it. Well, Karatsev many times, Seibofield maybe like twice or thrice. But I would say this year he's certainly like playing his Santiago 2020 stuff over an extended period of time. So
the 2 or 3 players and their victories today that we haven't touched upon would be Borna Coric. What do you think about his chances for now and against Echeverry, for example?
Well, it was a bit of a slugfest. I think this has been touched by, touched on by a few of us already on these streams as well. I remember talking with Vansh about it, that like Coric seems to do well in all these faster events rather, and including on clay. So like the run that he had in Madrid, the one in Rome, he also made the quarters, but it was like far less impressive. And so far it's just been a total slugfest for him, which makes sense. But he has been surviving. And against Echeverry, I'm not gonna say that I don't believe that he can win. I think maybe Echeverry like should be a tiny favorite. I don't think it will be like that for the bookies. I think like for me, Echeverry is probably a tiny favorite just because I think he can handle these sort of conditions much better, and Chorich probably doesn't have really that much to hurt him with. And I just think Echeverry is actually the favorite for the bookies. So scratch that. I just totally agree with it. It seems. And the Echeverry forehand is just something incredible. Maybe it's not the shot that's gonna give you like 60 forehand winners a match. It's not a Seibofield forehand in that sense, but just the way he can be so consistent with it, and it's so heavy too. I think he has the better slow clay skill set than Chorich. And this would also be, I think I said something like that it would be the icing of the on the cake of Echeverry's transformation this year, like into a full-time tour-level player, which has been amazing. We knew that he had it in him. It was just that he wasn't delivering in all these Golden Swing events in the past. Of course, now he had a final in Santiago, later a final in Houston. For a guy like Echeverry, obviously it is more key to like peak in these clay events, because on hard courts he's likely not going to do that much. He has been improving on hard as well, but like the results are not going to be as great as they can be on clay. But I think it would be a very good reward and just like a way to finish off that excellent period of just excellent patch that he's had recently. And as actually it turns out that the bookies, or like the odds makers, have already caught up with him as well, and they also consider him a stronger slow play player than Chorich. So I like that matchup a lot. I think it's actually going to be pretty tight and should be really good to watch.
Okay, any final thoughts on the day's play on the men's side before we switch over to the women?
Probably not. Let me look at like the just the matches. Ruud was like in trouble for a bit, but I guess
His
that's what you
opponent got
can
injured,
get
right,
with
a
these
bit.
matches, like Ruud Zapieri. But there was actually a controversial moment when Zapieri took an MTO 5-all 15-40 down in the fourth set. Which was probably just for cramps. Of course, you never know, and that's also why the rules are kind of weird in that sense.
Ruud looked a bit annoyed.
Yeah.
Ruud looked a bit annoyed, but the fact that he
of
ended up
course
winning,
you're gonna be annoyed.
But he won the next point, and he was very nice afterwards, of course, and everything was great, and he wins the match. But he was a bit annoyed.
But I guess that doesn't really matter that much. That Ruud was there in trouble there. He has so many players like this in his section, explosive guys who, like, the main challenge is going to be whether they can actually maintain this level over the course of at least 3 sets, and not whether they actually like have it in them. So if he plays Zapieri, Jari, Zhang in a row, I think that's really fairly similar to, all of them are pretty fairly similar in this regard. Of course, Zapieri is not quite at the level of Zhang and Jari. And thank you, Jane, for the $5. Matthew is also asking about Matthew is asking about Zhang potentially troubling Ruud. I think he has the style to do it, right? He has that huge serve. He has just excellent technique, perfect clean ball striking when he's on. As I said earlier, I don't know if you were here already, but I definitely thought that Zhang had a great chance to beat Ruud at the US Open. It didn't end up happening because he had an awful choke against Van Rijthoven, 7 match points blown in the third set, and then he lost it in 5. But I thought that the US Open, it made a lot of sense. It makes slightly less sense in Paris, probably just because, it's not even that Zhang is poor on clay or something. Last year, when he had that phenomenal run in the summer, he kept making clay finals on the Challenger Tour. So I think it's mostly about just Ruud being a lot more comfortable here than he would be in New York, even if he made the final. But we've talked about this many times. And also, Jake says, I would just put it on the screen about the Zepieri forehand, fantastic stroke, definitely. And yeah, I also thought he would push him. He wouldn't just go down without a fight. So after the first 2 sets, I was a little worried, but ended up being pretty much what we expected then.
Well, that sort of, I think, finishes the men's half at least of the day. Make sure you hit the like button, by the way, for those of you tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We can see I've got quite a few people tuning in, which is great. But we can only keep doing this and keep going if we have more and more subscribers to make it all worthwhile. Okay, over to the women. On the women's side, the matches that I either saw in their entirety or had my eye on at one point or another would have been Rybakina, by the way, in winning her match 6-3, 6-3. I didn't think she was amazing, but maybe that's a mark of just where we are at right now with Elena Rybakina, in that she can win matches comfortably at Grand Slams against players as good as Noskova with consummate ease, as I said here, without playing anywhere near her best.
I talked about this a bit yesterday, that this is maybe a controversial opinion because of course Noskova won the French as in the juniors, but I would buy her stock on hard courts. On clay, I am not so convinced that she can beat like the top players in the world. I think she's really reliant on timing, and like whenever she can maybe get a bit of a lower bounce, then she would just be more effective against the very top, against the elite. And yeah, I think in the Rybakina matchup, it kind of shows that Rybakina also has the advantage of having a huge serve. And even though she is so reliant on timing herself, she just has so much more like raw power. That she's so much stronger as well. Jake also says, I think probably on Moskova that movement was an issue. I'm assuming that it's on Moskova. And yeah, just a very clean win. And I think both Nick and I yesterday said that we kind of expected it. And I think that so far Bakina has definitely like avoided tricky opposition. She played two very young Czechs, but she has definitely avoided that tricky opposition a bit. I'm not sure where Soribes Tormo is right now. I haven't seen her in her comeback, since her comeback, but it kind of feels like a match that could go 2 ways. And I'm not talking about the winner, because that, of course, like a tennis match can always go 2 ways. But like one way is just a total grind fest where you're not gonna have a clue who's gonna win at all until the very end. And the other is just Rybakina coming out and just blasting her off the court in an hour. And I feel like we're gonna get either of these two. I would say that the fact that she might blast her off the court is a little more likely.
Okay. Yeah, Petra Martic and Madison Keys going out today. Martic, of course, had a pretty good run in Madrid before she ran into Iga, like most people do on this surface, and come unstuck. Madison Keys, of course, the 20th seed, going out in 3 sets to a compatriot Day. I don't know if either of those two defeats caught you by surprise.
I mean, odds-wise, I know Day was like a huge underdog. I certainly didn't think much of her run either. Do I still think? Do I still am I still in this position? I think so. This is Madison Keys and Clay. You never really quite know what's gonna happen. And of course, she hit like 74, I think, unforced errors.
Oof.
Yeah, was also like not really getting anything out of her serve. Winning about 40% of the points, I think, on it. So yeah, I would say it was just more of a rough showing from Keys. And there are actually still 4. There's a pun in the chat from Jake as well. So yeah, I would say of the 5 qualifiers left, I mean 4 qualifiers plus a lucky loser in the women's draw, Day is definitely the one that doesn't really like evoke. She doesn't really evoke the feelings that she could keep going in this event and like become a real threat to to make the semis or something. But then again, I think her draw is also pretty cool, right? Because that was the section where Schmidlova was in, probably.
Schmidlova, yeah, who
Yeah,
beat
she's
Bolsova.
playing she's playing Schmidlova. But do we think that Kyla Day, even if she plays even if she beats Schmidlova, can have a shot against Andreeva or Goff? That just seems like it's gonna be a pretty easy fourth round for whoever comes out of that blockbuster.
Had Meyer winning in 3 sets as well. So that's the first time I think Meyer has reached a third round at a Grand Slam in her career. Is that right? In like 7 or 8 attempts or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. This was her 12th Grand Slam major, I believe.
12.
She actually lost 7 times at the round 2 stage before. Some of these were really tough. Like I actually glanced through these records today, and it was like 3 times she played the top 10 player. I think it was Kerber, Pliskova, and someone. One time she played Halep, who was 15th at the time, so also really tough. There was also a match with Andrescu. You can really just say that, of course, a Grand Slam champion. There was one maybe where she had a chance, where it was actually the only set that she had won against Harriet Dart. But today she finally got over the line, which I don't know if it was like an emotion, like a mental block for her to get out of the second round, but it was certainly something about playing at the slams, right? Because if you have so much success elsewhere and it just keeps happening that you lose very early at the slams, then you clearly have some sort of an issue for it. I don't think it was specifically the third round, the second round, right? But certainly something was blocking her, and of course with all the success, the amazing results that have gotten her to number 12 even. It's pretty wild that she didn't have a Grand Slam third round. Jake is asking about the Swiatek's first 2 rounds. Yeah, not really any opponents who could trouble her, I think. They both play somewhat aggressively, but just are, I think, really overwhelmed with the weight of shots that Swiatek has. And well, actually, I think last time she played, both Buxa and Liu, she won 6-love, 6-1. These ones were, of course, at least in terms of the scoreline, more competitive. But I still would say that, well, it was mostly on her racket, and she definitely came out in both matches struggling with the wind a little bit, giving some games away in a while. Well, in a way. And especially today, there was that one service break that I think she just committed 4 unforced errors on, and that was really it. So yeah, matchup wise, as you say, I think it was pretty easy, and yeah, just 2 similar matches where she struggles for a while, but it's mostly with like finding her timing, tuning in the ground strokes, and then when she actually does, they just don't have a shot anymore whatsoever. But we kind of knew that's what was going to happen, right? I mean, she had a very good draw until the fourth round. Now that Krejcikova is out, you could probably even argue that she has a very good draw until the quarters. I would absolutely love to see Swiatek Andreeva in the quarters, and I think that would actually be a match that could be very exciting, also in terms of like being close. Well, Andrescu right now is playing pretty well too. So maybe Andrescu in the forefront is actually, maybe Andrescu is going to turn out more dangerous than Krejcikova. We know what the Canadian can do. So maybe
Yeah,
that's actually not that easy. Yeah.
I think from the fourth round onwards, it could be. I mean, there's so many things that happen, and we all start plotting draws and stuff, even after 2 rounds, and they normally get blown to smithereens. But a
Yeah.
run to the final of Andreescu, Andreeva, Rybakina, and then whoever she plays in the final. I mean, Sabalenka's the one that springs to mind, but I think there's no guarantees there. That would be a tougher run to the final than probably she's had in the past. But anyway, that's still to come. Andreeva, I'm glad you mentioned her. I mean, winning her match, just losing 3 games against Parry today. Any thoughts on Andreeva? I mean, you touched on Andreescu as well, so feel free to spread the word on either of those.
I mean, I barely watched Andrescu, frankly. Just mostly
Good
am
watch,
going
yeah.
by what I've read people saying on like Twitter and stuff. But of course, if she is feeling confident, if she is in form, she's a threat to everyone. So yeah, now that I think of it, maybe actually Andreescu would be even tougher than Krejcikova in the forefront. But a lot depends on health as well as usual, and yeah, just on what sort of Andreescu we see, because certainly these days she seems to have these bad days at the office quite often, I would say. Andreeva, she's just done, yeah, remarkably well so far. She has been probably a little cleaner than we could have expected. Basically, in 5 matches in Paris so far, she was pushed just once, and she was pushed by an incredibly dangerous player. Maybe the fact that she came
In
through
Osorio,
against
you mean?
Osorio in the yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean
Yeah.
maybe the fact that she came through against Osorio in the final qualifying round. Maybe this is something that actually helps her as well, because yeah, that was just a really high quality match. There was a lot of pressure, even though she won it in straights. The tense tiebreaker, she really had to dig deep to win that one. So maybe this will really help her. And yeah, Andreeva Goff, no one really needs to be convinced of the fact that this is a blockbuster. Two extremely young players. One, of course, has already been at like the top level for years, but at the same time, she has some very glaring weaknesses in her game, which, well, that's kind of impressive, right? To be in the top 10 and have them. And Andreeva, who just seems like the real deal as well. So yeah, that's just incredibly exciting. I actually wonder. I'm assuming that you haven't checked that, so I can just. I also haven't, so let's see it in a moment. But I remember like a couple of days ago on one of these shows, I remember wondering whether Andreeva would be the favorite over Goff, odds wise.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to know that. I think
Yeah.
she will be. But of course, to the casual observer, probably most people would think Goff would be the favorite, top 10 in the world, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah, last year's finalist. But I think the bookies probably are over this and aware of where Goff is at right now. I did actually watch parts of Goff's match today, and actually I was surprised at how comfortable she found things. I thought that I think the first couple of games was a bit tricky for Coco, but once she sort of got the match by the stranglehold, she never let go. And I don't know, it was a bit of a surprise that she found it so comfortable. So maybe there is some hope for her. But for me, it's 60-40 for me in Andreeva's favor. Does that mean that I think it's going to go 3 sets? No. I just think if they played each other 10 times, then Coco would win 4. But probably the ones that Coco wins are all in straight sets, and the ones that Andreeva wins, I see it being a sort of all or nothing kind of a result. I don't see it going to a third set tiebreak. I could be entirely wrong, but the way it seems to me is Andreeva is super on it or not at the moment. I mean, when she comes up against a big opponent like Sabalenka, she went out understandably in a sort of a tamer way than we would expect. But she also rolled over Leylah Fernandez and Linette, I think, in that tournament, and someone else of a high stature with consummate ease. And yeah, I would make her 60-40 favor. What are the bookies suggesting?
I haven't checked that yet, but I
Ah,
think I agree with you that I would actually expect her. But no, Goff is the slight favorite, at least for
yeah.
now. The market can change things up, of course. If people start betting on Andreeva, then she's going to be. But actually, Goff is the favorite, and it's somewhat close to what you said about like 60%. But actually, I see that at least on some of the bookies that I see here on this website. She even started as a much bigger favorite, and it has already shifted in
Well, there we
Andreeva's
go. That
favor. So I wouldn't be shocked if this becomes like even later on. But for me personally, Andreeva is also the favorite. I definitely second that. But yeah, that's the match everyone has to watch, I think, on Saturday. And yeah, let's hope it will be great. I do agree that there is a big chance that Andreeva wins this pretty comfortably. Then
yeah.
again, of course, no one really has like an excellent sample size on Andreeva yet. No one really knows how she's going to be, how she's going to do over 5 months on tour, let's say. Even myself, like I've probably watched her 5 6 times, which is probably much higher than most people, because we just haven't had many chances, right? So
Hmm.
even myself, I've watched her like 6 times. So I cannot really say that I have like the full estimation of her abilities yet either. So
And I was
um,
the first sort of time I could have seen. I mean, I could have actually gone to the match because I was in Madrid at the time and obviously had a press accreditation. But I think that was like first on. It was like 10, 11 o'clock. I was about an hour away from the venue anyway, so there was no way I was going to get there for this. And she played Leylah Fernandez, and the big story for me was, wow, Leylah Fernandez has gone out in the first round to a 16-year-old. And of course, we popped that did age a little bit better for Leylah, in that obviously she went to tear it up and get as far as I think the 4th round there before she lost to Sabalenka. And now she's tearing things up again right now, and she's talking about winning 23, 24 Grand Slams. Well, fine. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, some people might do, but that'll be the Grand Slam police.
She does seem like insanely strong mentally, right? Like she has not wilted under pressure basically anytime we've seen her. Well, maybe the Australian Open Junior finals, but I didn't really think that much of it at the time. But since she showed up in all these big events, she is just amazing. And I've said it a few times before about Holger Rune. I think that I think this sort of mentality can be really good for a player. Like you kind of have to be a little bit, well, in Rune's case, I remember I said crazy. In Andreeva's case, I'm just going to say overconfident. But like you kind of have to be crazy to believe that you're going to be number one at something, whatever it is, really. Like there are so many people in the world training tennis, and to think that you might win 25 Grand Slams when no one has ever done more than 24, I guess, if you want to count Margaret Court. You kind of have to be crazy. So I do think that mentality is actually good for you if you have the talent to back it up. And I mean, she clearly does. We're going to see what she does with it.
Maxime Cressy, he's not said 23, 24, but he has said, well, number one is within his grasp. I actually asked a youngster...
and Jake is talking about her shot selection as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I asked a youngster at the Rafa Nadal Academy, a young girl, a Spanish girl, about 14 years old, I think. And I asked her, what would you rather achieve? I said, would you rather win a Grand Slam or be world number one? And she said, be world number one. For what it's worth. I don't know if that's the same for every single player on the tour, but
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a very in most sports you don't have the ranking, but even if you do, most sports, I still think you'd probably go for the title. If you said to me as a footballer, would I rather win the Ballon d'Or or would I rather win the Champions League or World Cup? Well, I'd probably take any trophy over the Ballon d'Or because it's a team sport, I guess. But yeah, but then there is something amazing about world number one. I mean, Marcelo Rios is the guy we need to ask this question to because he's been world number one and didn't win a Grand Slam. And I think he's the last man who falls into that category. I'm not sure who the last woman is, by the way. But yeah, for what it's worth. Okay, let's go
for a long while it was Karolina Wozniacki, but Karolina Pliskova, right? She was number one and
there you go.
Did not win
than I thought.
Slam. Dinara Safina also.
Tomorrow's
these are
action, I'd like to just have a quick word on that before we bring things to a close, Damien. I'm just sharing on the screen some of the women's matches. Any of those catch your eye? The six I've got on the screen right now, for example, that are kicking things off. I actually think we're probably going to do on the channel. I think Tennis Ranta James is going to commentate on Peyton Stearns against Kasatkina for what it's worth. Any shocks you can see or surprises amongst these 6 matches?
I mean, I am definitely excited to see Stearns again against Kasatkina. She was fabulous against Ostapenko, which we talked about on the last ball drop show, or however you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I just think that there is some chance for her there. Kasatkina, fantastic match against Vondroušová. Not to take anything away from her, but I think like her style of the other day I called it in an article. Creative counter punching, and like this style sort of leaves the opponent a bit of freedom. And if Stearns can be, can start hitting that heavy forehand, I would like the way she was against Ostapenko. I really want to see this, and also if she can expose that weaker second serve from Kasatkina, like she did to Ostapenko, that could be very interesting to me. Pavlyuchenkova-Potapova, I think this is a really high quality match brewing there as well. Of course, Potapova being the runner-up at the French 2 years ago, and Pavlyuchenkova, of course. Not. Well, did I say Pavlyuchenkova? I can't remember.
You said
Potapova. But Pavlyuchenkova, of course, being the runner-up at the French, and Potapova improving so much this year.
Yeah, Pavlyuchenkova, of
Yeah,
course,
it doesn't
hadn't
really matter.
won a match on the
And
singles
Potapova
tour.
being having improved.
And Pavlyuchenkova
Yeah,
hadn't won a
other
match
than
on the
that,
singles tour for about a year until winning so in Madrid. And now she's obviously got a couple more in Paris. So I've got a bit of a soft spot for her. And I do think that probably her chance 2 years ago when she did go deep into the third set, I think it might have been 7-5, was it, against Krejcikova in that third set? It was certainly very close in that third set against...
9-7 maybe, I think.
was it 9-7 maybe? Okay.
Yeah, because that was still in the days of
Before the
no
deciding set
tie
tiebreak.
breaks. Yeah.
Okay. So I just feel as though, unfortunately, that probably was her moment. But listen, I'm all here for it if she proves me wrong. Okay, Svitolina, of course, having a bit of a renaissance too.
Oh, 9-7. Sorry, 9-7 was the 9-7 was the quarter that she played against Rybakina, and she lost the final 6-4. Not 9-7.
6-4. Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
9-7 was the
well,
quarter that she played against Rybakina.
over to the men's action tomorrow. I'm going to propose a question for you, which is this. One of Novak Djokovic or Carlos Alcaraz are going out tomorrow. Which one is it? If you have to choose one.
It's not a real question, right?
Yeah, I mean I don't think
it has
either
to be
are going
Novak.
out.
No. That's not what I mean. I think one of these has a significantly better chance of surviving tomorrow.
You think Carlos Alcaraz will go through easily, right? And you think Djokovic is vulnerable?
Yeah. I just think Djokovic has a stronger rival. Someone who can deliver on like a more. Shapovalov, we know how he's going to play. We know how he's going to come out. Of course, if he just comes out and peaks for 3 sets, maybe he can do something incredible, right? Davidovich Fokina, I think he could really just push Novak playing his own game, not really necessarily, coming out and doing something special and just trying to hit the opponent of the court. He can actually rally with Novak, I think. And I wonder how this is going to look. I think this is the first like real test for Djokovic. I still think he makes it through, but I would not be shocked with that loss at all. I think
Lost to him in Monte Carlo.
It's just how good Davidovich Fokina is. No, I mean, come on, that loss doesn't count. He was like he was just a shadow of in terms of his
but
physicality,
he got
to
the final in Monte Carlo that year. He started to show himself on of winning big matches, if you like, and getting to the final. I've been a bit surprised that he hasn't done better on the clay this season. Going out in Estoril to Cecchinato. Okay, he ran into Alcaraz in Barcelona, although no one pushed Alcaraz closer in Barcelona than Davidovich Fokina. Tsitsipas could barely lay a glove on Carlos. Same with Cam Norrie in the semi-final. It was actually Davidovich Fokina who went to a really close tiebreak. And I think it was like 7-6, 7-5 overall, or 7-6, 6-4 that match. I should know because I was at the match, but it doesn't matter. I can see him taking a set, but I do expect Novak to prevail. Shapovalov, I haven't seen either of his 2 matches. I think that may have given me a better chance to analyze it. But I just think the reason why I posed the question as well is because I think between Carlos and Novak right now, I know it's clear in the stats in that Carlos has dropped a set, but I also just think that Carlos isn't looking as supreme as he was for the first 2 clay court tournaments of the season, if you like.
I don't really think we can say that after the 2 matches, It just doesn't really matter like what he's going to do most of the time so far. Against Shapovalov, are we really going to get much info? It's going to be certainly a very different matchup than what he will have to face against someone like Djokovic or maybe even Tsitsipas in the quarters. So, I don't know. I just don't feel like him playing against Taro Daniel or Flavio Cobolli gave us much info, just like Djokovic playing Kovacevic didn't. Djokovic against Fucsovic, quirky game plan that we've seen like Djokovic get troubled by before. So also we didn't really get much, I think, from it. I don't know.
2 Grand Slam, 2 French Open former semi-finalists, or I should say, of course, Tsitsipas was a finalist in 2021, but In 2020, these two guys were in the French Open semi-finals, albeit on opposite sides of the draw. However, if Tsitsipas has dropped a little since, say, 2021, Schwartzman has fallen off a cliff in the last 2 years. I think this is a nice match for Stefanos. A
Yeah, I
nice
think
third round.
at some point this could have been very close, but I think right now there is a high possibility that this will just work like the Karpais-Baena matchup for Tsitsipas, which is he just has too much freedom, really. He just comes out and, the other guy can't really hurt him because right now there's no threat in Schwartzman's baseline game, basically. And yeah, Tsitsipas, of course, he can get himself into trouble. That's something that you can always do on the court. But even if he does, he's gonna have so much time to actually work it around and just finally do it, I think. So yeah, I would just say that this probably isn't that much tougher than Karpais-Baena was right now for him. That's at least what I think.
Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell because I think we'll have a couple of commentaries for you tomorrow, one of which will be Djokovic, Fokina, and the other one will be Kasatkina. Who's Kasatkina playing in her match at the beginning of the day? Stearns, yeah. So we'll probably bring you those two matches tomorrow, so make sure you join us for that. Jake is saying that he's gutted that he's going to be missing Musetti Nori because he's going out for some beers. Well, maybe the beers would be the right choice. I don't know. I don't know if your pulse is racing by Musetti and Nori.
I would love to see Musetti keep this level up, like what he's been playing in the first 2 rounds, and then play Alcaraz in the 4th round. That's what I want to see. So, yeah, that's just what I have in mind.
Alcaraz. Yes. Now, then things get very interesting. For Carlitos. Okay. I think that will bring today's show to an end. Unless you've got any final.
I'm not letting you go without a Sebastian Ofner mention because he's going to try to break the top 100 tomorrow. He is currently in the top 100 live, but like winning tomorrow would put him in there without any sort of mathematical doubt. He would be like 18 spots ahead or something. So yeah, just basically wanted to get that out there. If anyone wants to see a very happy Sebastian Ofner tomorrow at the end of his match, then you know what to watch. If anyone wants to see a very displeased Sebastian Ofner at the end of the match, maybe you also know what to watch. I have no clue who's going to win this match. Fognini has been saving his career here, I suppose. So far, he is going to be really motivated to take this, I suppose, although you never know, it's Fognini. But, just needs to be mentioned that this can be quite monumental for Sebastian Ofner tomorrow.
Displeased players at the end of a match, in victory or in defeat, does seem to be a bit of a theme for the day. We had one player winning in tears. I know it's not displeased, but in tears in Danial Altmaier. And we had another player that for a minute was like this, which everyone's going crazy about in the chat. Damien, thank you for joining me.
Sorry,
today.
one more thing, because Ghosty wants to talk about Peyton Stearns. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Just before you came on, I was talking about the fact that she will have some, time to hit that forehand, that Jack Sock-ish forehand. Even I heard this comparison on Twitter. I think Sock has a lot more, his spin rate is a lot more extreme. I would seek a different comparison. Even when watching Stearns against Ostapenko, sometimes she was reminding me of Sabov Wield, actually, which, is quite a name to live up to in terms of the quality of the forehands. And yeah, Stearns was also targeting the Ostapenko second serve against Kasatkina. She can probably even target the first serve sometimes. So yes, Ghosty, I agree with you. I think, I hope that this will make you very happy.
It would be great if Ghosty could join us for the first commentary tomorrow, but I think it's 11 a.m. here, it's 10 a.m. in the UK, and it's about 3 or 4 in the morning for Ghosty. So I think even that might be for our loyal fan. That might be a bit of a stretch. Okay, listen, everybody, thank you for stopping by. Damien, thanks for joining us again, and I know you and I think Nick will be in the chair tomorrow night. To everyone's relief, I will be not front of house and stage, but I want to leave everybody with one final message, which is shh.
Was he also doing this? Do you think? Or I mean, Fritz, was he just did he just have his finger here, or was he also doing? I don't know. I think he was also.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.